You ever look back on your life and think, why do I still carry this weight? Not just emotional weight, but real, physical symptoms. Chronic pain, fatigue, heart issues, a body that seems to be aging faster than your peers, even though you try to eat well and stay active. What if I told you that something that happened when you were just 5 years old could still be affecting your health today, in your 60s, 70s, or even beyond? Sounds unbelievable, right? But more and more, science is showing us that the body never forgets. According to major studies, nearly 2/3 of adults have lived through at least one major adverse experience in childhood. Things like emotional neglect, physical abuse, or growing up around addiction or violence. These are called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and they don't just affect your emotions, they shape how your entire body responds to stress for the rest of your life. The aches, the sleep problems, the blood sugar swings. They may not be random. They may be echoes of something that happened decades ago. So here's the big question. Could the trauma you experienced as a child still be making you sick right now as a senior? In this video, we're diving deep into that question. We'll explore the lifelong impact of childhood trauma on senior health, from blood pressure to brain function, immune response to inflammation. You'll meet Eleanor, a 72-year-old woman whose unexplained health issues trace back to emotional wounds from her early years. Her story may sound familiar, because for many of us, the pain of the past doesn't fade. It hides in the background, silently influencing our health in ways we never realized. But here's the hopeful part. You are not broken, and it is not too late. Science now tells us that healing is possible at any age. That means you can change how your body responds, protect yourself from disease, and feel stronger, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So let's find out how. Let's begin a journey of healing, starting right now. Eleanor is 72 years old. She's warm, sharp-witted, and loves feeding the birds outside her window. But behind her smile is a daily struggle she never imagined she'd be facing this late in life. For years, Eleanor's been managing type 2 diabetes. Last year, she was diagnosed with high blood pressure and mild heart failure. Her doctors chalked it up to age, genetics, and lifestyle. But here's the twist. Eleanor doesn't drink, she's never smoked, and she walks every day. Her diet, mostly vegetables and lean protein. So why was her health still declining? That question haunted her, until a routine questionnaire at a new clinic asked something unexpected. Did you experience abuse, neglect, or major stress during your childhood? Eleanor paused. Memories she hadn't touched in decades suddenly surfaced. Her father was an alcoholic. Her mother often disappeared for days, and when she was home, she yelled. Eleanor remembered crying alone in her closet, trying to block out the shouting. She remembered the fear, the silence, the stomach aches that started at age 6. For the first time, a doctor connected the dots. The chronic stress Eleanor lived through as a child had wired her body into survival mode. Her nervous system never learned to fully relax. Her immune system, always on edge. Her body had been marinating in stress hormones for decades. And now, at 72, the cost was showing up as real disease. When Eleanor realized this, she didn't feel broken. She felt seen. For the first time, her health struggles weren't just random. They had a story. And in that story, she found clarity and even a sense of power. Because here's what her doctor told her next. The damage of trauma is real, but so is the possibility of healing. Her past mattered, but it didn't have to own her future. What is childhood trauma? ACE 101. So what exactly is childhood trauma? And how does something that happened decades ago still affect the body today? Researchers use the term ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences, to describe highly stressful or traumatic events that happen during your first 18 years of life. These aren't just the obvious forms of abuse. They include a wide range of emotional and environmental stressors that can shake a child's sense of safety. There are 10 recognized categories of ACEs, and they fall into 3 main groups: abuse, physical, emotional, or sexual harm; neglect, physical or emotional needs not being met; household dysfunction, things like having a parent who struggles with addiction, mental illness, incarceration, or domestic violence; or experiencing divorce or separation. Each ACE counts as 1 point. So, if you grew up in a household with alcohol abuse and emotional neglect, that's an ACE score of 2. The higher your score, the greater your risk of developing serious health issues later in life. But it's not just the number of ACEs, it's how those experiences affect your body's biology. When a child is under constant stress, their brain sends signals to activate the fight or flight system, the part of the body designed to handle short-term danger. But when that system is turned on for years, it floods the body with cortisol, the stress hormone. That can damage tissues, wear out the immune system, and make the brain more sensitive to anxiety and depression. This chronic stress response is like revving an engine non-stop. Eventually, it burns out parts of the body that were never meant to run at full speed all the time. That's why people with high AC scores are more likely to develop heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, memory problems, even die younger. But here's the key point. ACEs are not a life sentence. They're a warning light, and once we recognize them, we can begin to reset the system. The science, how trauma alters the body and brain. You might not remember every detail of childhood trauma, but your body does. And modern science now shows us exactly how those early stressors leave long-lasting fingerprints on your organs, hormones, and even your brain. Let's start with the HPA axis, the command center for your stress response. HPA stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's a loop of communication between your brain and adrenal glands, designed to help you survive danger. When you're threatened, this system floods your body with cortisol, giving you a burst of energy and alertness. But here's the problem. In a child exposed to chronic adversity, whether emotional neglect or witnessing violence, the HPA axis becomes overactive. It gets stuck in high gear, constantly pumping stress hormones. Over time, this burns out the body's ability to self-regulate. It weakens the immune system, disrupts metabolism, and raises inflammation throughout the body. That inflammation is no small thing. Studies have found that people with high AC scores show elevated levels of inflammatory markers, like CRP, C-reactive protein, even decades later. Chronic inflammation is linked to nearly every major disease: heart attacks, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, and Alzheimer's. And then there's the brain. Repeated childhood trauma affects the amygdala, the brain's fear center, making it hypersensitive. It also shrinks the hippocampus, which is key for memory and learning. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus, reasoning, and emotional control, often develops more slowly. This makes it harder to manage stress, trust others, or regulate mood, even long after the threat is gone. Hormones are affected too. Long-term stress alters the balance of cortisol, insulin, sex hormones, and even gut hormones like ghrelin and leptin, which influence hunger, digestion, and weight gain. It's a domino effect. Touch one system, and everything else is impacted. Even your DNA isn't spared. Trauma doesn't change your genes, but it can switch certain ones on or off through epigenetics. These changes can increase the risk for conditions like heart disease, depression, and immune disorders. And some of these biological shifts may even be passed on to future generations. But here's the hopeful takeaway. The brain and body are not fixed. With the right tools, these patterns can be changed. Neuroplasticity and healing are not just possible, they're real, and they can begin at any age. Lifetime effects. The trauma-aging connection. You've probably heard someone say, stress ages you. And as it turns out, that's not just a figure of speech, it's a scientific reality. People with high ACE scores are more likely to develop chronic conditions like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and even dementia. But what's especially compelling is why trauma causes these problems to appear earlier or hit harder as we age. Let's begin with telomeres. These are the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes, kind of like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, telomeres get a little shorter. When they become too short, the cell can't function properly, and aging accelerates. Studies have found that people with high levels of childhood trauma often have significantly shorter telomeres, even by middle age, suggesting their bodies have aged beyond their years. Next is cortisol, your main stress hormone. In small doses, cortisol helps you stay alert. But constant trauma keeps this hormone elevated, leading to a state of chronic wear and tear. High cortisol is linked to weight gain, blood sugar imbalances, muscle loss, sleep problems, and even memory decline. Some trauma survivors experience the opposite, a blunted cortisol response, where the system is so worn out, it barely reacts at all. And then there's epigenetics. Trauma doesn't alter your genes, but it does affect how genes are switched on or off. These changes can increase inflammation, weaken immunity, and push your biological age well beyond your actual one. Scientists call this epigenetic aging, and yes, it's measurable. Bottom line, trauma accelerates aging, not just emotionally, but physiologically. But here's the good news. Understanding this gives you power, because what's been altered can also be healed. You can learn to slow the clock, starting now. Hope and healing. What can be done at any age? Here's the part that matters most. Healing is not only possible, it's biological. No matter how many ACEs you've experienced, no matter how old you are, your body and brain can change. That's thanks to neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself. Even decades after trauma, the brain can form new pathways, strengthen healthier ones, and quiet the circuits shaped by fear and stress. You're not stuck, and you're not broken. What's more, research shows that with the right interventions, even biological markers of trauma can improve. Inflammation goes down, cortisol levels stabilize, the nervous system begins to regulate itself. It's not just emotional healing, it's physical recovery too. So what actually works? Therapy is one of the most powerful tools, especially trauma-informed approaches like EMDR, somatic experiencing, and cognitive behavioral therapy. These help the brain reprocess and safely integrate past pain. Mindfulness is another science-backed practice. Meditation, breathwork, and body scans reduce stress hormones, activate the prefrontal cortex, and promote calm. Just 10 minutes a day can change how your brain responds to the world. Then there's connection. Humans heal in relationship. Safe, supportive community, whether through friends, support groups, faith circles, or caregiving networks, helps reverse the isolation that trauma creates. Other practices, like movement, time in nature, creative expression, journaling, and healthy sleep, also play a huge role in regulating the nervous system and restoring balance. The path to healing isn't one size fits all. It's personal. But every small step you take, Every moment of awareness, every new habit, every connection creates real change inside your body. You're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by what you do next. So, what have we learned? Childhood trauma is not just a memory. It's a lifelong force that can shape health, behavior, and aging. From increased risk of chronic illness to shortened telomeres and epigenetic shifts, the effects run deep. But the message isn't doom, it's hope. Because what's been damaged can also be repaired. Your brain can change, your body can heal. And healing isn't limited by age. It's powered by your willingness to take the next step, no matter how small. We've seen how ACEs impact the immune system, hormones, the brain, and even the length of life itself. But we've also seen the power of therapy, mindfulness, movement, and community. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means transforming. If you've made it this far, thank you. You've already shown courage just by being curious. And maybe you're ready for more. Maybe this is your moment. So here's your call to action. If this video helped you, hit that like button. It helps more people find this message. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. You never know whose life it could touch. And if you want more videos like this on healing, health, and thriving after trauma, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. You are not your past. You are your power. And healing starts right here.